Welcome to Her Divine Path. This is a channel that is dedicated to nature-led intuitive medicine, as well as ancestral wisdom, and of course, inner recalibration. So I am starting off by talking about the fire horse, and I am dedicating the entire month of February to this fire horse energy because, as we have noticed with New Year's, often people get caught up in the momentum, if you will, of these energies, the New Year energy, the fire horse energy, and then they actually don't know how to apply it to what is happening within their own lives around them. And they also don't know exactly what is happening on a deeper level. We do understand that the fire horse energy represents transformation and it is a catalyst for that. However, I am going to take a deeper look into some of this wisdom that we can draw on from the fire horse energy. Again, welcome to my channel, Her Divine Path. I am here to help guide you along using my own life's wisdom and that I have learned throughout my own journey, and hoping that it may help yours. If you happen to resonate with this video or any of my videos, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, follow along, and leave a comment if you feel compelled. So let's dive into this, shall we? Let's talk about the fire horse archetype. Oh yes, because there is a fire horse archetype. So first of all, I just want to reiterate, or at least clarify, that when we talk of an archetype, we are not talking about personality traits. Archetypes are not trends. They are more or less recurring human forces that have existed across cultures, eras, the earth. They are patterns of energy that we are witness to, and we see this happen across, as mentioned, cultures, eras, even mythologies. And so the archetype I am talking about today is the fire horse archetype. Now, what does the horse represent? And I do have a horse here. As you can see, you can look right into its eyes because we're going to draw on its wisdom. The horse in general represents movement. It is will, power, will, a strong will. It is also momentum. And we can look at this across history and we can look at this from our own experiences, but the horse in general represents power. It represents strength. It represents a forward motion, vitality, a sort of wildness. And I'm going to talk about that in another video if I don't get to it today, because that is something extremely powerful that we are feeling right now, and not necessarily in a bad way. So the horse also represents vitality and freedom. It is this instinctual intelligence. And even by looking at this photo of the horse, its eyes, it has an inner knowing. It also has the capacity to carry power over distance. I mean, we're going to get into that as well. But historically, if you were to think about what horses were used for, there's your answer right there. Also, it should be known, and it is observed, that horses, they don't necessarily sit well in containment. Neither does my dog, and my dog is a 95-pound Weimaraner, and he literally looks like a pony. He does not do well in confinement because of his long legs and his body, which is built for speed and muscle. It is meant to move. So when this horse archetype shows up in a person, just the horse, it's often going to appear as a deep intolerance for stagnation. Hello. Definitely shows up in my life. A sort of restlessness when we are stuck in environments that are misaligned with our soul or our life's mission, if you will. I definitely can feel the horse archetype in my own life. Absolutely. It is something that is very strong and has a very strong presence in my life. Horses. Yes. The horse archetype also would have, of course, difficulty with micromanagement because it is big. Its motion and movements are meant to be grand, majestic, big strides, forward motion. This again, this power over distance. So, to break a horse, obviously, if you have ever watched one be broken in, it does take a lot of difficulty because they don't like excessive control. This does not mean to say that they will not be obedient, but historically, the horse archetype is a strong internal force of wildness. It doesn't want excessive control. It doesn't like to be micromanaged. And horses, and this also happens with dogs, they have a very strong sense of internal direction. I notice at times my dog, when he is tracking, and especially if I hide behind a tree sometimes to test his senses out, he will always find magnetic north and then go from there to retrace his steps. It's fascinating to watch. And horses have that same sort of sense of internal direction. And for the record, we do know that horses were built to move. Absolutely. They are not meant to be still. They were carriers. They traveled long distances, and we will get into that. But let's just take a look at other aspects of the horse archetype. So often people could associate the horse archetype with rebellion, but I don't feel like it's rebellion just to be rebellious. I feel like its movement has intelligence. It's done with purpose. It's not just rebellious for rebelliousness' sake. It's actually a movement intelligence is how I can best describe it. Now let's go to the fire, shall we? So fire. What about the fire is striking us in this current year of the Firehorse? Well, fire in general represents an intensity, right? It has a purpose, which is to burn. And that burning, what comes out of it is a transformation. If you've ever been witness to a forest fire, and we have seen a lot of them over the last couple of years, they literally destroy forests. So it is destruction, however, destruction with a purpose in a sense, because after the destruction comes the renewal, as mentioned in my other video, and there is a transformation there. Forests will change. They will actually, believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but usually after the first thing to grow, after a forest fire, is a blueberry bush. And I actually read that when I was in Newfoundland. Blueberry bushes tend to grow after a fire. And a lot of the low crawlers, the low underbrush will grow after a fire before the trees start generating. And so there is this immense transformation of foliage, of the actual landscape of the forest. So there is that element of transformation in the fire aspect of the archetype. And fire is also heat. Heat is energy. Energy is an illumination, if you will. I mean, if we think of energy as light, our light sources, it is an illumination. If we think of our internal energy, it is heat. If we think of our vibrational energy, that is illumination. Again, fire is that transformation and refinement, because it refines what was there but no longer. It burns away what we don't need. It also burns away what we do not wish to lose, but it takes it with it. With it, refining what is important to us, what is valued, and what is meaningful in our lives. So in that sense, I feel like fire reveals the truth. And again, if you've watched any of my other videos, fire historically was used by civilizations and societies because that is where they cooked. That is where they heated themselves. That is where they told stories, passed on these oral through oral traditions, they passed on the narratives of their lineages. So it was used to heal, it was used to feed, it was used to soothe, it was used to warm, to heat, it was used to carry on these traditions, it was used to purify, to clarify, to initiate. So I feel in that sense, fire, there's a sense of catharsis around a fire because it does reveal our truths. And also, when it does reveal the truth, it's sort of telling us that it's going to take with it what is no longer serving us and what will not withstand its own heat. It's going to burn what cannot withstand it. And so I feel like when fire enters that archetype, it adds a sort of urgency. That catalyst, and it adds a sort of passion. Fire definitely is associated with passion. It's sort of got a focused will. So if you imagine the horse, which is, movement intelligence, and then you have the fire, which is focused will, those two together are representing a very strong drive, one with purpose, one that's accelerated, and one that's transformative. Also, a fire, if uncontained, will burn quickly. And I feel like there's this very big metaphor with the containment of fire and stoking the fire. I mean, there are so many metaphors that I could go on with the fire in terms of it being stoked to steady the flame over the course of the night so you can stay warm, so you can tell your story, so you can cook your meals. But when you have that fire, slow, steady burn, or the fast burning, the uncontained, and then you have this uncontained wild energy of the horse, and you put those together, it's basically a catalyst archetype. So the fire horse is a catalyst archetype. And I feel like with the fire and the horse together, you're not going to get calm wisdom coming at you. You are going to get this very strong catalytic energy. And if the fire horse archetype is showing up in your being, in your surroundings, in your environment, in your dreams, in your essence, and right now I feel like we all have an element of this fire horse archetype because we are literally in the year of the fire horse. It's definitely going to show up as something that is accelerating change and disrupting stagnation simply by just existing. And this is basically what is happening with our systems that are way past the stagnation point. We are noticing this within ourselves. We are noticing that, what normally has been slow and methodical and sort of lagging is now showing up as this really intense catalytic fire horse energy. And it could even appear as too much, but I don't think there's ever such a thing as too much because there's always a purpose to it. So it's sort of got this natural inclination to unsettle complacency, if you will. And I think this is where a big misunderstanding takes place when we are dealing with the fire horse archetype, because fire, in my eyes, and the fire horse in general, could often be misunderstood. Of the systems that I feel that are man-made require a sort of stability, a predictability, a control. But if we look at the systems in nature, they are ordered, but they don't necessarily provide a stability. We don't know that it's going to be a sunny day every single day. There's no stability in nature. It's all very left to its own devices. It's sort of left to the wildness of its own rhythmic timing, even though there is order to the universe. And I feel like when we deal with these man-made systems, we are dealing with the systems that are literally designed for stability, predictability, and control. And if you have a strong Firehorse archetype energy or archetype in you, or you are represented by that energy, that archetype, you are not going to do well in those systems of predictability, of stability, and of control. I personally am one of those people. I have a very strong Firehorse archetype and energy. I am very, very uncomfortable with predictability and stability. And that's not a bad thing, because what people fail to realize when they are not in stable environments, and of course there's good and bad to every situation, but your brain actually expands because it's constantly being asked to adapt and assess and problem solve. So in a certain way, instability creates a very large capacity to withstand a lot. On the downside of that, instability could dysregulate your nervous system if you are one that needs stability and predictability and order. I was married to somebody who needed that because he had suffered instability his entire life by moving from city to city to city to city. His parents used to move him around a lot. He was always starting a new school. So when we met, here I was, this wild horse, and he was this creature craving stability and predictability and order. And I was literally a butterfly searching for the next flower. And that's not to say that that's bad. It just meant to say that I would go with the flow more. I didn't necessarily need the predictability and the stability and the order. In fact, I often found that that would limit my brain capacity, and I would not feel stimulated enough, because I personally need that stimulation of that energy. Now that's just a side note. I went off on a little tangent there, but what I really wanted to say is that the Firehorse is going to bring about speed. It's going to bring about some pressure. It's going to bring about the truth, because we have that fire. It's going to bring about momentum because we have the horse. It's going to bring about the intensity, the fire and the horse. It's going to bring about high emotions. And often these in the Firehorse archetype, I think, are mislabeled. They're considered too emotional, too intense, too driven, too disruptive, too impatient. But here's the key insight in all of that. The Firehorse isn't destructive in the way that most people would associate the fire to be destructive, or a wildness to be destructive. It's sort of exposing the brittleness of ourselves, the fragility of ourselves, and the fragility of systems. And I don't think that disruption is the ultimate goal of the Firehorse archetype. I believe it is to realign. The Firehorse archetype, if it's present, is meant to help realign. It is meant to help find that truth within us, use the momentum to move forward with will and passion and inner knowing. And I feel like, to me, that represents a realignment as opposed to a sort of a destruction. Now, if we were to look at the Firehorse energy in our modern world as it is today, it might show up as burning out. So let's just take a look at the Firehorse energy, or the Firehorse archetype in the modern world. Basically, if we were to look at the modern context of the archetype of the Firehorse, the energy might often show up as a type of burnout, or an irritation, or a frustration, or exhaustion. I know I have been feeling a lot of irritation the past couple of days, and I just keep reminding myself, which is really interesting, oh, there's that Firehorse energy. I'm feeling a lot of fire in me. And then, of course, it's been raining the past 2 days, so I have been going out in the rain to balance that fire I've been feeling within me with the water element, because fire element is strong, water element is also strong and soothing. So I've been balancing it with the cooler aspect of the weather out here. But I did want to talk about how also this fire horse archetype is also pushing forth the urge to move or to speak. And it's interesting because I've just started this YouTube channel really seriously under this fire horse energy. I was just guided to by source. And so I feel like some people with the fire horse archetype are being called forward to speak their truths right now. And some people may see that as a desire to speak or to share, but with no clear purpose or channel, but there is one. So I feel like often the archetype of the fire horse is misunderstood or mislabeled. They would probably mislabel that energy as anxiety or like a failure. When fire horse energy is not understood or guided, it often gets suppressed. I feel like it's misdirected energy or misdirected intensity, which leads to a sort of depression and or numbness. And people can feel exploited, which leads to burnout. People can feel pathologized, which leads to self-doubt, scattered, leading to some kind of chronic frustration. But when a fire horse archetype energy is understood, it becomes a sort of leadership, a creative voice. It becomes a truth-telling and momentum for change. And I think it's really important because what may have felt like unpurposeful before suddenly becomes purpose-driven action. And it's not that the fire or the fire horse need to be softened. They just need to be directed. They don't necessarily need to be contained, but they need to be directed. So the fire horse, I believe, has always, in a way, been misunderstood. It is not here to destroy. It is here to move things along. It is here to move things along that have grown stagnant. And of course, when that energy has nowhere to go, it turns inward and it can feel like burnout. It can feel like chaos when it's misdirected. I, as someone who is often mistaken for or labeled for being intense, I feel like I embody the fire horse archetype quite well because I can hold fire, I can hold momentum, but I can also hold restraint. And I feel like those are really key elements in understanding how to direct or channel our fire horse energy, because fire horse energy matures over time. We can have a young fire versus a disciplined fire. And of course, we know what that is all about. You know, when we have young fires, we're sort of careless and purposeless in what we're doing. And then we have these beautiful moments of maturity that lead us to extreme wisdom. And just a few closing notes. So the fire horse energy, it has been misunderstood a lot. It's been labeled as chaotic or dangerous, and I'm going to continue talking about this archetype and the energy over the course of the month. But I really want people to understand that the fire horse archetype and the fire horse energy, it's really just movement energy. And it is energy that just refuses to be stagnant, refuses to be still. It's not going to destroy what's alive. The horse is representative of vitality, of life. A fire is alive. It also represents vitality and life. So this isn't going to destroy what's alive. It's going to, again, expose what is fragile or brittle or stagnant. Or for people with fire horse energy, I think the problem with anyone, let me put it this way. If you have a fire horse archetype present around you, surrounding you, in you, you are a fire horse energy fueled type at this moment, you're not going to have a problem with your lack of energy right now. It's going to be a lack of direction, but that direction is coming. And what's important right now is most people aren't taught how to work with that fire energy. they don't know how to release it properly or actually direct it properly. And so they turn it inward, and then we get that explosive energy. And I spoke about this when I was talking about the tectonic plates in the video of the Ring of Fire. But the Firehorse archetype really is here to remind us that fire is not the enemy. Unchanneled fire is. It's not that it needs containment, it needs to be redirected or directed properly. So if you are feeling any of this, then I just want to remind you that there are things you can do to sort of step into that fire horse energy of direction and work with the momentum of it. And do not allow anyone to tell you you are being too much of anything right now, because that is part of the energy, and it's often been misunderstood and mislabeled. And it's time that the fire horse speaks the truth, and we are here to do that right now in this physical time, space, and reality. We are here to step up our momentum, to move with purpose, with will, with directed fire, because when we do not have directed fire, it becomes chaos. And so with that, I am going to leave you with this. If any of this resonated with you, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or even just comment. Let me know your thoughts. I am wishing you much momentum moving forward with this fire horse energy, and I will be continuing on with this little series, if you will, talking about the fire horse energy, how we can use it properly, how it can be directed, and also what it really, really means to be in this year of the fire horse, and why we aren't going to enter this year of the fire horse with calm, cool collectedness. We are going to enter this year with a breaking of systems, a restructuring of systems, a momentum, a wild energy, but we can use this to guide us forward if we are directing it properly. And if the fire horse energy is not directed properly, then it can turn to chaos, and I will be talking about that in my next video. Thank you for watching, and you all have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.